Welcome along to 98 Not Out. It's a big moment of the year. It's the Lord's Test match. England are about to lock horns with India. And to talk about it, a very good friend of mine, Lizzie Ammon, Legside Lizzie from The Times is here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Enjoying this beautiful weather that continues?
I am, although I do think cricket grounds up and down the country are going to need some rain at some point because they're all brown.
Yeah, that's
Well, not
true.
Lord, not Lords. Lords is still looking lush, but normal cricket clubs looking
Well, Lords is
brown.
lucky because I mean I've been there before, and I can remember being there for a game against India probably about 10 or 12 years ago, where it hammered it down with rain when we got to the ground first thing. But the drainage was so good that they managed to get away on time, albeit with a few interruptions during the morning session. But Lords, yeah, come rain or shine, they managed to get the game on.
Yeah, we're in for a heat wave. It's going to be hot, hot, hot in northwest London.
And word reaches me that members are excused from wearing jackets in the pavilion this week.
Yeah, it's almost like they've reached the 20th century.
Or the 19th.
Maybe.
So England India always a mouth-watering clash, and the series is sort of living up to expectations. Nicely poised at one each. Um, but I mean, there are lots of things to think about as this test gets underway. I mean, England won the first test at Headingley, a brilliant game of test cricket. Um, I want to use the word thumped Edgbaston because they were completely outplayed.
Hammered. Yeah, absolutely hammered. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sets it up nicely for this one. I always thought that this would be the case when there was all this talk about how India were going to use Jasprit Bumrah, and then there was the teasing of Jofra Archer. But I mean, the pair of them are locking horns um, at Lords this time round. You got any thoughts on? Let's start with Jofra Archer because that's the one that's the name that's on everyone's list. How do you feel about his selection for this game?
Well, I mean, it's great to have him back, but it's been so long. I don't know. We don't know what we're going to get. I mean, that's not his fault. That's no one's fault. But it's a big ask. But they are absolutely adamant. You know, we keep asking the England captain and coach and Rob Key and everyone, "Are you sure he's had enough cricket?" And they are adamant that he's fit and he's firing. They're not worried about his workloads and they're not worried about him breaking down. Um, and he's, those who've faced him in the nets, the England players who've faced him in the nets, said he's rapid again. So that's very exciting. So we all remember his debut in the Ashes in 2019 when he was tearing bits out of Steve Smith, and that it does add so much spice to a match when you've got a really fast bowler who's really intimidating and batsmen have to take evasive action and stuff. That it really adds a real frisson. Um, but he's the only change to the side. I'm a little bit worried about Chris Wokes, I have to say. I mean, it's not my place to worry about him. But he is 36 and he has just played two matches and we've only had 3 days off since the last one. And he looked, we looked a bit tired by the end of Edgbaston, it has to be said. Having said that, his record at Lords is incredible. 35 wickets at 12 or something in test matches. So I can see why they picked him. Um, yeah, it's exciting. But I mean, let's face it, for most of this series, England have been outplayed. It's just that at Headingley, India had those two collapses, which really cost them. They dropped from catches, which really cost them. And the pitch for the run chase was doing absolutely nothing. But Edgbaston, fair play to them. Even without Bumrah, Akashdeep was a revelation. I mean, he really did get loads out of that pitch. And I think it'll be a real handful from the pavilion end in this match. So, and England have got some problems with the batting. I mean, it's not, they were rescued at Edgbaston. Some momentum was grabbed back from that partnership between Smith and Brooke, which, God, when they were batting, I thought we might never ever get a wicket in Test cricket ever again. I mean, it was going on and on and on. It was brilliant. It was amazing to watch, but it was flat, that pitch. But let's not forget, they crumbled to spit for five, didn't they? Twice. And so, Yeah, it's got to be a concern that they're needing the middle order to sort of get them out, or they needed the middle order there to get them out. But then, 2 weeks ago, Duckett got an incredible ton, and Pope got a ton, and it's a fickle game, isn't it? This one.
Well, yeah, and I think you talk about Duckett and I'll chuck Ollie Pope into the same conversation that they seem to me to kind of almost represent. They're a living embodiment of baseball. That 1 minute it's all fantastic and beautiful and exciting and whatever, and then in a flash of in a flash of a hand, it's complete disaster and collapsing and God knows what else. We haven't even talked about Zak Crawley. Lucky boy.
Oh, I don't know what to say about Zak Crawley. I mean, I think by now we just know he is what he is. And they've put their eggs in the Zak Crawley basket for the Ashes, thinking that his style of batting and the way he shapes up will suit the Australian pitches and all that. And they probably got a point. But girl, we have to watch a lot of failures in the meantime, don't we?
Yeah, I'm just sort of thinking back to Rory Burns last time we were down under. Um,
Oh, poor Rory.
yeah, yeah, who's sort of never really recovered from that first ball of the
Oh,
first test.
it was a bit grim. But I mean, I think the thing is, I think they're pretty locked in with their batting lineup. I think they're pretty locked in. They're fully behind Ollie Pope. And obviously there's Jacob Bethel waiting in the wings, who is he's a prodigious talent. There's no doubt about it. He's a ridiculously talented young man. But he is a young man, and it's like there's no rush. Someone will get injured and he'll get his place. You don't have to mess around with a formula that you think is worked just to try and shoehorn someone in. They're also sticking with Bashir, who I think they also recognise is really young, really is learning his art whilst he's playing Test cricket, which I have to say is not ideal. But I mean, did you see when he was reverse sweeping? When he came in with nothing to lose, he was having fun with the bat, and I think they genuinely love having him around and think that he's really talented and and he can do a job. But at the moment, he's not doing a job. Although it wasn't that long ago, at Trent Bridge against Zimbabwe, he absolutely rattled through them, didn't he? So,
Yeah, he did.
there is something there, but it's interesting. They really do back their players. I mean, they back them and back them and back them and back them. It takes a lot to be dropped from a
Yeah,
Brendan McCullum team.
yeah, and I think there seems to be, as we're having to suck it up, is this importance of being part of this team. It's almost like a game mentality, that they're picking players that are going to fit into the model, and then once they're in, they'll stick by them. The one slight question mark I'd chuck into that is Sam Cooke, because he'd been knocking on the door for ages in the county scene.
Well, yeah, and I think so. He did really well in Australia for the Lions with the Kookaburra
That's right,
ball.
yeah.
And you can't ignore that, particularly if you're looking for a balanced attack in Australia. But he really looked innocuous against Zimbabwe at Trent Bridge. And that's a concern. And they are obsessed a bit by speeds. Even Wokes. Well, I mean, Wokes is not slow. He's not military medium. Wokes. He looks slower than the others, but he's not so slow. Whereas Cook was medium pace, and on flat pitches like they ask for, like the basketball they ask for flat pitches so they can play the way they play. He's not going to be a whole heap of use. That's not to say he wouldn't be a whole heap of use in Australia with a Kookaburra ball, given that he's been able to do it before. So might not be the end for him, but I think for the moment it is.
Well, yeah, you're right, and he did do well for the Lions. Maybe he will still be on the plane down to Perth later in the year. What about the captaincies on both sides? I'll start with Shubman Gill. Um, as India sort of arrived on English soil, there were lots of questions about this team being in transition, and obviously with Kohli and the like stepping away from Test cricket, a lot was put on Shubman Gill, and I think we've seen enough to see how good he was as a batsman. But I think he has hit the ground running with his captaincy.
Yeah, I mean, I think at Headingley there was some tactical issues, and I didn't feel at Headingley like he quite had the on pitch aura of a Kohli in that chase. I don't think he was quite able to rouse his players to go, come on, this is a record chase. How come we're not getting them out? But I think very quickly by Edgbaston, he'd there's a lot to be said for leading from the front with the back, and he did that. And then they all fall in behind him and go, good grief, our captain's just absolutely nailed this, and so let's play for him. But also, I think it takes a bit of time to grow into the job. It's not fun being India Test captain, is it?
Oh God.
You really do get sniped at every move you make. I mean, the pressure and the scrutiny is. If Ben Stokes thinks he's under scrutiny, I mean, it's ludicrous. And he's unspeakably young, isn't he? I mean, I think he 25, but he looks 12. And so, he's just having to learn really quickly how to do the job, and how to do it his own way. He isn't Rohit, he isn't Kohli, he hasn't got that gravitas that came with them. He'll just have to learn a slightly different way. But it does look like the players are all well and truly behind him.
Well, yeah, 399 runs at Edgbaston.
I mean, that's
it's what?
Nuts. That's nuts. So
yeah, yeah, exactly. The highest by an Indian in a single test, and it was the first test win for an Indian side at Edgbaston. I hadn't quite appreciated that they.
Well, India have only ever had 3 series wins in England in history, haven't they? And like one of them was 2017, was it?
Could be, yeah.
And then the others were like, back in the dark. So it's not, historically, it's really difficult for India to come over here and win. And that is because historically they've struggled with the lateral movement, that you get from the Duke's ball, the swing and the seam, which is what is home advantage for England. We don't have that anymore because that's not what they want. They don't want that. So that's not what we've got.
The ball has been a big subject of contention, hasn't it?
Yeah, the balls are. I mean, if you talk to the Duke's manufacturer, Dilip, it's not the ball's fault. And although he's blamed the cows in the past, but he said they're not rocked, they go soft. To be fair, he's probably got a point. They are being leathered into the LED advertising boards and into the stands, and they're going to go a bit soft, aren't they? They're hitting concrete or LED billboards all the time. He did raise the point that maybe we should think about changing the ball between 60 and 70 overs rather than 80. And I guess there's sort of 80 is an arbitrary number that was introduced at some point, wasn't it? I mean, it's not that it has to stay forever. And maybe it is that balls are just not coping for 80 overs anymore because they are being hit so hard. With the new bats and over the ropes all the time, So maybe it's a talking point that, somewhere down the line, the ICC might need to look if 70 overs is better or 60 overs. Because at the moment, we're having to change the ball. The umpires are running on with this silver suitcase of balls. The players are moaning. It's going through the ball gauge. It's all a bit of a pain.
Yeah, it is. It is. Switching to Ben Stokes, so far he's gone with this approach of if he wins the toss, he puts the opposition into bat and wants to chase down in the 4th innings. Likely to stick with that? Have any questions been asked about his approach?
Yeah, and he did say, we're absolutely not stuck in our ways and I will judge it on conditions. And what he said about Edgbaston was that when the coin went up, there was a bit of cloud overhead. And by the time they got out there at 11 o'clock, it wasn't there anymore. So I'm like, I have a little bit of sympathy. He's not, he can't do anything about that, can he? You have to go with what you can see. But the thing is at Lord's is that actually you probably would bowl first, although, I don't know, it's going to be red hot, isn't it? But the pitches they start off a bit slow and then they speed up. And they have had so much success chasing that, you can't really argue with the formula. They've had loads of success. And South Africa in the World Test Championship final, not that long ago, what was it, 3 weeks ago or something? They won the toss and bowled first and they won chasing, didn't they? So, if he does it, he's going to be accused of being, intransigent and not being flexible. But actually, it might well be the right thing to do is to bowl first if you think the pitch is going to get better and the weather's going to get better. So, I don't know, difficult for him.
I think it's going to be.
I mean, he may be hoping that he loses the toss. To be.
Yeah, well, that would make a change. But I think, yeah, you're right, and it's hot and going to get hotter all the way through this. There's no. I just looked at the weather forecast earlier on for the next 5 days, and it doesn't really look like any kind of let up or
No, no, it's
passing
baking,
clouds. And
baking hot. We're not going to
yeah,
see any rain, and yeah, there are going to be a lot of very drunk red people at Lords.
ah, well, that's it. On the subject of support, a lot was made about Edgbaston and the Hollies, but Indian support. I mean, there's a big Indian supporting contingent in Birmingham who seem to be more vociferous. I mean, I suppose with the way the game was going, but they seem to be making more noise than the famed Holly stand. Um, and
Well, I mean, day five, they took over the Holly stand, the India fans, because I mean, obviously, I think so. They sold a lot of tickets overnight. They sold about, I don't know, 4,000 after during day four and overnight, ready for day five. All, I mean, pretty much all India supporters, I would think, because they could see that they were about to be on the verge of a, you know, there was no way England were lasting out 3 sessions, was there? It's just not what they do.
no,
They could see that they were on the verge of an incredible victory and a whopping victory. So they were really loud and they were, really good support.
yeah, and I think that'll be the case at Lords. Whenever I've been to an Indian Test match, I remember Tendulkar's last game, and Lords was as packed as I've ever seen it. And mostly Indian fans that have not really balked at the ticket prices. The tickets start from 175 quid uh, for this Test match.
Yeah, it's not cheap to go to Lords, is it?
No, no.
In any way, shape, or form. But I mean, they if you look on the mad, illegal web ticketing sites, they're going for 400, 500, 600 quid, because they want to go, especially if you're traveling over, which a lot of people do for the Lord's Test because it's the one they want to go to. So you'll pay whatever you need to pay to get a ticket, won't you? But
Mm.
it should be an incredible atmosphere. I mean, it's very different at Lord's to other grounds, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
It's a
is.
bit more champagne corky, popping corks. But during the World Test Championship final, people were watching the cricket. They weren't out the backs getting drunk. They were out there at lunchtime and then they went back to their seats and they were genuinely watching the cricket. And a really knowledgeable, quite predominantly South African crowd. But I suspect we might get more of that this time rather than sometimes when they're lesser series, people go to Lords and then they go out on the nursery ground and they just drink and they only watch the morning session and then they never go back to the seats again. But because the cricket's so absorbing in this series, I think people will watch. I think they'll go back to their seats and watch because you won't want to miss it.
All right then. Predictions, please, for this Test match. Not for the series. I think the series has still got a long way to go, but just for this Test match, how do you see it going?
Oh man. Do you know I think England might pull it back this one. England have got a good record at Lords, decent record at Lords. They're all very experienced, most of them, know how to play the slope, know what to do with it. Um, Whichever way it goes, then it will only be 2-1 either way, won't it? We've got 2 tests to play. I mean, it's great for the series to keep it all alive, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a draw.
No, because there's no weather.
That may come later on. But it's Lords, it's Test match cricket. It's going to be a packed house. You're going to be
What's
there.
not to like? Yeah,
I'm going to be there.
I
Maybe.
know. Yeah, I'll be there. Obviously, don't have to be.
Well, you'll be working hard, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Lizzie, great to catch up, and thanks for all your thoughts on this wonderful series. And let's just hope that it's a fantastic occasion. No one gets injured. Jofra is back to his best, and we see a bit of the stunning Jasprit Bumrah as well, and maybe one or two of these batsmen coming forward and hitting a few runs. Lizzie, thanks very much, and we'll catch up soon.